going to read chapter 5. In chapter 4, Abbas arrived in Istanbul in the airport, and he was supposed to meet someone, and they didn't help him, and then he took a taxi with a guy named Ahmed. He wasn't very trusting of Ahmed first, because remember, Abbas has lots of money with him. He's 9 years old, he's by himself. His dad told him to be very careful. And he doesn't want to disappoint his father. It's something we see a lot of. And they drive around all these streets, and things are looking kind of dangerous and scary because it's at the middle of the night. And they go to one hotel. The guy tries to make him pay a lot of money, so they go to another hotel. There's someone on the street that's been killed, so they go to a different hotel. And finally, they find somewhere where he feels that he could stay. And then Ahmed leaves because he has his own family, and Abbas is by himself with this guy, Murat. And that's what we're about to read now. Chapter 5, page 63. Murat led me up some dark, damp stairs covered in a dirty green carpet. He was stocky, so he was kind of fat, with short dark hair and deep-set brown eyes. And while he wasn't a huge man, he had a presence that couldn't be ignored. So he's not big, but there's something about him. He feels like a big person with a big personality. As I followed him, I noticed his slow, deliberate steps. We walked through a dim corridor to room 201, so there's not much light, which was to be my home for the future, for the foreseeable future. He turned the key and opened the door only slightly, so that I couldn't see inside. "Good night," he said. "Abbas, is it?" "Yes," I replied. "Good night, Murat." I heard him whistle to himself as he walked away like this. I almost didn't dare open the door, but I was tired. I lifted my bags and pushed the door with my foot. It opened to reveal a tiny room with a big bed in the center. It was covered with a thick sheet and flanked by bedside tables on either side. So kind of like a small room with a kind of big bed with something on the side of it. It was covered with a thick sheet and flanked by bedside tables on either side. The bed took up almost all of the space. There was a banged-up old cupboard with a sliding door at its foot. A small window with its frame covered in flaky blackish-green mold looked out onto the street. And that was it. So a bed with a cupboard, and really that's all. And it's disgusting inside. Page 64. I felt a chill. It got cold. I had only seen rooms like this in movies. A cockroach to the left of the bed, next to a door, caught my attention. I didn't dare open that door yet. I patted the sheets, so he touches the sheets. They were clammy, kind of wet. There were stains all over them, including several crimson stains, which made me feel queasy, so the bed isn't even clean. I opened the door to the left of the bed and found a bathroom. Good thing I did, because I was sick and threw up until I had nothing left inside of me. How I wished my mother was here, rubbing my back and trying to make me feel better. Finally, I stopped throwing up and raised my head to take a look around me. The bathroom was filthy. It was dirty. The red tile was mixed with patches of yellow paint covering random areas on the walls, so it's been destroyed. A shower hung above me. There was a huge drain in the center of the slightly sloping floor, smudged with stains. So stains are where there's been, right here, like lots of mess all over the floor. It looked like a used syringe, which I knew was bad news. So very, very dirty. I went to the trash can and took out the plastic liner. I used it as a glove, making sure the needle did not come into contact with my skin. Very carefully, I picked it up and turned the liner inside out so that the needle was at the bottom of the trash. Bin means trash. After that, I washed my hands for what seemed like forever, putting soap on my arms up to my elbows like a surgeon, while I watched more cockroaches scuttling around the edges of the bathroom. So there are stains on the floor, the bed is wet, the window is gross, and there are cockroaches everywhere. How was I going to cope with all of this? I kept finding myself close to crying, close to tears, faced with having to solve one problem after another on an endless list. 65. My first night in Istanbul seemed like it was never going to end. I sat on the bed to think about my next plan, my next move. I opened my suitcase and was putting all of my clothes on the bed in small piles: socks, trousers, jeans, t-shirts, shirts, sweaters, when I heard a loud noise. Someone was shouting in the street. I dared myself to creep to the window and take a peek and look. It was dark, and all I could make out and see was a man walking and stumbling around with what seemed like blood all over his face. He was shouting like a wild animal. He kept falling over, but when he found anything on the street, like bottles or cans or stones, he would pick them up and throw them at the buildings. Eventually, he threw a stone through a glass window, and within seconds, a light came on. A man leaned out and started to shout in Turkish. Then he disappeared, but he came back. He reappeared with a big stick. He ran after the man in the street and began to hit him and beat him. I could hear everything, every thud. Once again, I realized how vulnerable I was in this strange place. How I wished my father. And there it was. I suddenly remembered that I had not called my parents. My watch said 3 a.m. It must have been dawn, sunrise in Tehran. Remember, his family are still in Iran and he's in Turkey. Honestly, I did not want to leave my room, but the telephone was downstairs. I locked the door behind me and began to make my way slowly along the dark corridor, the hallway. Then I ran down the 2 flights of stairs as quickly as I could. Page 66. Murat was half asleep. "Something wrong?" he asked. "No, I just need to..." "Did you see what happened outside?" "No," I said, pretending everything was fine. I did not want to talk about it. "I just want to use the telephone," I said. "Yes, of course," he said, a little distracted. "You give me the number, and then when I connect, you pick up the phone in one of those." He pointed to 3 little cubicles at the far end of the small lobby, so 3 little rooms. "Okay," I replied. "Can they call me too?" "Yes." "May I have the number for the hotel, please?" "Sure." As he pulled out a card with the hotel's details, he said, "Do you still want to make a call?" "Yes," I said. He looked at me, and I thought he was trying to figure out if I had been crying. I didn't think he could tell, as I had washed my face and I was acting a lot more confident than I actually felt. He handed me a piece of paper and a pen, and I wrote down my home number for him. I looked at my watch again as Murat dialed. What should I tell Baba? And what should I omit? I was sure that if I told him half of what happened in Istanbul, he'd have me on the first plane home. There was no need to worry him more than necessary. I got my plan together. Murat started to wave, and I could hear him saying, "I have an international call for you from Istanbul." The phone in the first room cubicle started to ring. I took a deep breath. "Hello?" I said, hoping for a friendly voice. "Abbas, is that you?" I heard my father say. I could hear both the anger and concern in his voice. "Yes, Baba, it's me." I said softly. Where have you been? Why didn't you? Baba, I screamed. Take down this number and call me back at my hotel. Hotel? What hotel? He demanded. Baba, call me back and I'll tell you. I could not believe that I had spoken to my father like that. Suddenly, I felt a rush of power, and it felt good. I gave him the number and put the phone down. I felt a little less worried about talking to him now, but I still expected a bombardment, so lots of questions. The Inquisition was about to commence. I waited in the cubicle. Sure enough, within minutes the phone rang. And even before either of us spoke, I could feel the intensity of my father's anger, his fury. Hello? Abbas, why are you in a hotel? He asked. What happened to the man who was supposed to pick you up? Once I found him, he told me to swap $20 at the bank. I told him you told me not to, but he insisted. Okay, he said, sounding curious. Then what happened? Well, I thought he was going to take me with him, page 68, as you had said he would. But instead, he just gave me a list of hotels and told me where I could find a taxi. I could feel my father getting angrier as the silence grew. So I decided to continue with my story, with my account. I didn't know what to do, Baba. If I had asked for help at the airport, I was sure they would send me back. So what did you do? I heard my mother's sweet voice in the background. Don't be so hard on the boy. He's trying his best. Is he all right? Just let me deal with this, Mazaya, will you? Baba, is that Maman? Can I speak to her? No, you can't, my father retorted. You just tell me what happened next. Well, I went and found a taxi and started to look at prices from the list that the man gave me. That idiot, he shouted. If I get my hands on him... Karim, my mother interrupted. So what are these hotels like, Abbas? They're okay, Baba, I said, trying to sound like I meant what I was saying. And I got a good rate, I think. The taxi driver helped me. What taxi driver? The one who drove me from hotel to hotel. He's gone, right? Yes, Baba, he's gone, I said firmly. So how much is the hotel? I hesitated. I waited for a while. As I did not know if my deal was good or not, I crossed my fingers. Remember, Abbas is always scared of disappointing his father. 6,500 lira a night for the first 2 weeks, and then 6,000 lira a night after that. Remember, lira is the money in Turkey? There was a pause. I could imagine my father running the numbers, thinking about how expensive it was in his head. That's not bad, Abs. Music to my ears. From my father, that was a compliment. What should I do next, Baba? There was silence. Then I heard my parents arguing. Just let me speak to him for a few seconds, Karim, I heard my mother beg. Please. The boy's traumatized. He's upset. I don't need him to be more upset. He's my son too, she said, her voice rising. Let me speak to him now. Not until you're calm, woman. I am calm, she screamed. Who do you think you are? Baba, I said quietly, but there was no response as they continued to argue. Baba, I called louder. What? He snapped. Why can't I speak to Maman? Because you will upset each other. Well, I'm going to see you soon anyway, right? There was a pause. I was convinced he was going to tell me how to get back to Iran. However, the longer the silence stretched, the more I worried that this might not happen. Baba? Page 70. Yes? I am coming home, right? I don't think you should, Abs, he said softly. My worst nightmare had come true. I could not believe that my father was going to let me, no, make me stay in this hell. I felt tears roll down my cheeks, crying. I did not want my father to know that I was crying, so I didn't speak. I think he was trying to choose his words carefully in order to make me feel better. However, at that moment, I needed more than a few carefully chosen words. I needed more confidence. I needed to be older. And most of all, I needed my parents. Alternatively, I needed a miracle. Abs, he said, you still there? Yes, I murmured. You're going to have to be strong now, Abs, he said. You're going to have to be a man. What could I possibly say to this? I could not tell him that I couldn't cope. I didn't want him to be disappointed in me. All my life he had told me how much he expected of me. So I held my tongue, though deep down I did not know how I was going to survive. I did not know what to do or who to trust. And from what I had seen that night, I did not know if I was going to live to see another day. Abs? Yes? You've already shown me you can handle and take care of yourself like an adult, he said. I bit my tongue. I was scared to death, and all I wanted was to have my mother hold me. You got a taxi all the way from the airport and looked around a strange city for a good hotel. It is a really good hotel, right? I guess, I said. And it's in a good area, right? Yes, I said, resigning myself to lying, so telling my father a lie. It was not worth both of us feeling bad. I understood that my father carried the responsibility for my safety on himself, on his shoulders. My mother had wanted no part in this. He probably felt guilty for sending me off alone. I didn't want to make him feel worse and add to his guilt. Yes, my father continued. If you can get a taxi in Istanbul, go around and compare prices and rates and find a good hotel all by yourself, then there is no reason why you can't do everything else by yourself, is there? I couldn't bring myself to answer him. Is there, Abs? So his dad's like, look, you did all of that, now you can continue by yourself. No, Baba. Good, then. It's settled. It's over. I wasn't sure who he was trying to fool. Baba? Yes, he said. What exactly do I have to do? I asked. Well, you have to get to the British Embassy somehow, he said, thinking quickly. There you have to try to get a visa. A visa is what you need to be able to travel to a different country. For example, I'm from England and I need a visa to be here in Colombia. I have to exchange money first, Baba, to pay for the hotel, I said. They want to be paid weekly in advance, and I've left a $50 deposit until I get lira. Then I'll get my 50 back. Page 72. Right then, that's what you have to do, he said. But don't swap it at the bank, I said. I'll find a black market dealer like you told me to. Good lad, he said, getting excited again. Good lad, I told you that you could do it. Just ask someone Persian tomorrow where they swap their money, and then go and get it from the same place. You can bet that they would have found the best deal. Okay, I said, not totally sure or convinced. And what shall I do at the embassy? Ah, yes, he said. At the embassy, you'll find it a little difficult because they don't speak Farsi. They only speak Turkish and English. So what shall I do, Baba? I'm guessing that there will be some Iranians there. Ask one of them to help. Never be shy to ask for help. Just choose who you ask carefully, as they may try to take advantage of you. How do I know who to choose? I asked. That's a good question, son, he said. I'm still trying to work that one out for myself. It's about knowing who you can trust or not trust. Some people have it in them to know, and some don't. It's like an ability. It's like a sixth sense, Abs. We'll soon see if you have it or not, but I think you do. I do? I think so, son, he said. I think so. For the first time during the conversation, I felt a little better. The fact that my father thought I had something that most people don't have was great. So if I get someone to help me, Baba, I inquired, what do I tell them at the embassy? The truth, Abs, he said firmly. Always tell them the truth, because if you don't, they will find out and you'll never get to England. So Abbas is trying to escape to England. Okay. Tell them that you had to leave to avoid having to go to war. Tell them that your father believed that the best thing for a child of your age is education, and that you are not going to be allowed to get education in your own country, because remember, Iran is at war. Tell them that the regime, the leaders, were so determined to drag you into the war that they stopped your parents from leaving with you. Tell them that you want to go to England to stay with your cousin, Mehdi, who has lived there for 14 years and has British citizenship. He has agreed to be your guardian. He is a chef if they need to know that. They will need documentation. Write down what they ask for, and I will call you around 9 o'clock your time tomorrow night. You can tell me what documentation is needed, and I'll get it to you as fast as I can, okay? It seemed so simple to him, but that was a lot of information for me. I was scared that I would get it all wrong. Okay, I said. Abs? Yes, Baba? Page 74. Be careful, my boy. Don't leave the hotel at night. I wasn't going to, I said. I couldn't tell him that. Having seen what I had, I would prefer to avoid leaving the hotel, even during the day, so just stay inside all the time. Good boy, he said. Baba, I said gently. Yes, Abs? Can I speak to Maman, please? Remember, Maman means mother. Not tonight, son, he responded. I knew he had sensed the desperation in my voice, and still he said no. Maybe tomorrow. I had no energy to argue with him, but I missed my mother more than anything else. Now go to bed, Abs, he ordered. You must be tired. Yes, I am. Say good night to Maman for me. I will. Good night, Baba. Good night, son, he said. Oh, Abs? Yes? We're proud of you, son. I put the phone down, unable to breathe. I was glad that it was late, as I didn't want anyone to see me like this. I calmed myself, then opened the cubicle door. I walked and I crept slowly past reception and ran up the stairs. I opened the door to my room to see my clothes still on the bed. I slowly started to put them away. All I could think about was finding somewhere to swap money the next day and not getting ripped off or taken advantage of. Finding the embassy and trying to find someone to help me communicate there. It was all too much. I turned off the light and crept to the side of the bed, but I could not force myself to lie on it. I switched on the light again and then edged my way onto the bed. It was cold and the sheets were damp, they were wet. A small, cold wind, chilly draft was whistling through the gaps in the windows. Every little noise I could hear was apparent to me. The flapping of the curtains was making me feel as though I was being watched. Every shadow in the room looked like some enormous monster. I was so tired, but I did not want to sleep. I was scared that I would never wake up again. For the first time that night, my crying, my sobbing had a sound. I was hungry, I was thirsty, and most of all, I was homesick. I missed my home. The night just didn't want to end, and yet after a few minutes of crying, Minutes that seemed like hours. I fell asleep and drifted into a sleep. Very, very sad chapter when Abbas realizes he's all by himself. He calls his dad. He doesn't want to disappoint his father. His room is disgusting and dirty. It's cold. It's wet. There's cockroaches. And he has a lot of things he has to do. It's the end of chapter 5.